Greetings, all you dirty heathens out there in Halloweentown. I hope everybody's doing pretty all right. This is Hyperborean Radio. This is the censored version. If you would care to listen to the uncensored versions, make sure to check us out on the podcast. There's links. If you can't figure out YouTube, you got problems. So make sure to do all the YouTubey stuff, click the buttons and slap them and tickle them and all that good stuff. We do got some good news. It is confirmed. On the 30th and the 31st, we will be doing live streams. It's not going to be marathons, so don't get too excited. We're not going to be doing marathons, but Neil Rundgren's going to be coming on the 30th and the 31st to do a couple live streams with us, basically as a birthday gift. That's what he wanted for his birthday, so he's getting it. His birthday, I believe, is actually on the 30th. So, yeah. Make sure to tune in for that. They're going to be roughly about 4 p.m. Eastern time. So instead of noon Eastern when we normally broadcast or when we normally upload, it's going to be at 4 p.m. Ish. Because that's how our lives always work is ish. We're going to do our best. So, yeah, I'm Celtic God, and with me today is the Lord Keeper, and he's pretty excited about today's topic.
Yes, but before I get into that, I just want to remind everyone to like, share, and subscribe, and to hit that ghostly bell, and the spirits of the dead will ring it at midnight to let you know when our stuff is available, or whenever. But today's kind of the third in like a trilogy of Halloween-themed shows that we've done. The first one was kind of just Halloween in general. The second one kind of went into like the spirits and kind of the point of the holiday. And this one is going to be a bit different. We're actually going to do effectively a heathen movie nights, specifically on a very well-known film of Halloween, and it's not Halloween. It's not Trick or Treat. It's not I Know What You Did Last Summer. It's not any horror movie. It's actually a remarkably pagan film called A Nightmare Before Christmas. And one of the things that really started getting me interested about talking about this movie specifically is historically the holidays that in America are known as Halloween and Christmas. There's many names for these two holidays and many variations, but they all typically have a similar idea, which is spirits of the dead, and then you have sort of the winter solstice / other Festival of the Dead, because that's a lot of what Christmas is. But this movie actually is one of the few examples where these two are joined at the hip in the modern day. And it is actually chock full, beginning to end, with pagan references. And with that, I'm going to have CG start us off.
Well, yeah, because I was just going to say, if you're familiar with very much of the lore, and you watch it again with new eyes, especially being aware of a lot of the lore that goes around these two holidays, it is flooring how accurate it is. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's all kinds of things wrong with it, but don't focus on that, because it wasn't made to be a pagan film, which is why it surprises me it gets so much right. It links Halloween and Christmas, so Samhain and Yule. Let me see. Jack himself is immensely accurate. Jack the Pumpkin King. When he's first introduced, he's dressed as a scarecrow, and then the scarecrow catches fire. The scarecrow costume burns off, and then there's Jack the Pumpkin King. He's displayed as a skeleton for the movie, but it's accurate enough. Yeah, that's actually a thing. That is legitimately 100% a thing. The scarecrow, the totem, and the field, they, in fall time, typically destroyed, whether they is burnt or buried or on occasion drowned or hung. But no matter how you look at it, no matter how they did it, or simply disassembled. Because that was another thing, was to disassemble it and then put the pieces in boxes, scatter the boxes, and bury them. No matter how you look at it, the scarecrow is always destroyed. My favorite one is burning it, but hey, what's wrong with a bit of a fire?
Well, and he's specifically brought in that situation on a horse with basically a trail of spirits behind him. And later in the
Isn't it a three-legged horse?
I forget what the horse exactly looked like because it was stop motion, so I think it was actually on wheels or something. But that's also like a pseudo Wild Hunt reference. Mm-hmm. And then not only is he set on fire in a scarecrow costume, just like Del Bel de Butzel from like Urglave lore, he is then doused in what I guess is for Halloweentown is water. So this entire film literally starts with the spirits of the dead. So you've got jack-o'-lanterns, you've got werewolves, you've got the Who when you calls Who's There. You've got
the best of the monsters.
Oh yeah, that one is CG's favorite. You have ghosts, ghouls, goblins, vampires. I don't even know if they have goblins. They definitely have a horned god in there with like the imp-looking thing, the devil, and it is remarkable just how much in that first scene is pagan lore, and it's just chock full of it. And I think one of my favorite things that this does is, even though it's segmenting them by holidays, there's effectively, well, they're not the only gods per se, well, godlike beings, for lack of a better term. In their realm, there is very clearly whose realm it is. Halloweentown is the realm of the Pumpkin King. It is the realm or the hall of Jack Skellington. And then you have Christmastown, which is the hall of Sandy Claus, as the movie typically calls him. You have Eastertown, I'm guessing, where the Easter Bunny is. I'm guessing, I don't know, like Thanksgiving, you get Tom Turkey, and then Cupid's running Valentine's, and then you've got some kind of leprechaun that you probably would despise running St. Patrick's Day town.
Well, and then you also have things like, crap, I forgot what her name is, Ella? The ragdoll. Sally. The ragdoll. She's based on something too, but honestly, it escapes me at the moment. But yeah, it's a legitimate thing. The ragdoll is actually a legitimate thing. But more important to me is how innocent it all is. Like the monsters of Halloween Town, they're insidious and they're monsters and they're everything else. But as soon as the concept of Christmas is brought in, it just shows how naive and innocent they actually are in all of this. It doesn't occur to them to be anything else, to do anything other than what it is that they do. And why would anybody do anything other than this? Why would you not give somebody a flesh-eating doll? Why would you not? Why would you want a sock if it doesn't have a foot in it? They cannot wrap their minds around Christmas because they are innocent in many ways.
Well, and even Jack, who is the one pushing, let's take over Christmas. Let's do this. We're going to do it great. We're going to do it better. Even he messes it up horribly. Like, there's this entire scene where he's trying to figure out Christmas. So he's like running scientific experiments, crushing up ornaments and boiling them and using chemical tests to try and figure out what they are. And he doesn't understand it at all. And there's even a whole freaking song and dance number where he basically ends up putting Christmas lights around a freaking electric chair. And then he's like, we're just going to take it over and do it our way. And then he's got, a fake beard, a skeleton reindeer, a ghostly Rudolph, a casket for a sleigh. He's got all of his spirits who adore him, absolutely adore him, making toys. And he's like, well, what is a toy? So he makes a doll. But these spirits, they cannot fathom that the doll would not try to eat somebody. Or, well, there's supposed to be these big round like things that are like this. Oh, a snake. And he starts delivering snakes. Well, what is the Jack in the Box supposed to be if it's not allowed to eat somebody? So he just keeps, or, well, you know what a kid would really need? A shrunken head.
Well, and it's not done out of any malicious intent. There's nothing malicious between Halloweentown and Christmas, I guess. And part of it's actually clearly stated by the end of it, when Jack defeats Boogie, the Oogie Boogie Man. Jack doesn't fight the Oogie Boogie Man because the Oogie Boogie Man is trying to take over. Jack doesn't care because the Oogie Boogie Man can't take over. What Jack gets mad about is how the guests are treated. How Jack's friends are treated. Sally and the guest, which is St. Nicholas or Santa Claus. That's what gets him all up in arms, because how dare you treat them this way? These are my friends. You don't do that. You can go against me, but you don't do anything against my friends, which then gets the Oogie Boogie Man unraveled and stepped on at the end. But that's actually what that's about. It has nothing to do with, oh, well, you see, Jack had to destroy him because the Boogeyman was trying to take over. No, Jack didn't care.
Well, and if you actually pay attention to the movie, as far as I can tell, Oogie Boogie is not really trying to take over Halloweentown. He knows he can't beat Jack. What he's trying to do is take over Christmastown. That's what his goal is. Because he can't win against Jack. Jack one-shots him as an afterthought. There is no contest of powers. And then the interesting thing is, it's still implied that Oogie Boogie is the second most powerful spirit in Halloweentown. So Jack can one-shot him. Nothing else in that town carries a single shred of a chance of beating him, even all of them put together. And they all adore him. That's the power scaling we're dealing with, and everyone in that town adores Jack.
Well, and if you watch the movie with fresh eyes, you see evidence of Jack's power scale throughout the movie. He does stuff just as a matter of course that none of the other beings can do. It can even come close to. I mean, just the way that he walks across like the headstones and the buildings when he's in Christmastown, and just the way that he moves, let alone some of the other things that he does. Or, I don't know, something like getting set on fire and it doesn't bother him in the least. I think he's accidentally poisoned at one point and doesn't even notice.
Blown up.
Oh, and blown up. Yeah, when the military, during Christmas, when he's flying around on his flying casket with his skeletal reindeers, and he is so innocent, he doesn't realize that they're trying to shoot him out of the sky. He's like, ho, that one was close, guys. You better watch out. He didn't even notice. Gets blown out of the sky, and it just hurts his feelings. Doesn't hurt him. It hurts his feelings. His little Fifi's got bruised because, they didn't like me and my Christmas. What? Why not? Everybody's supposed to like Christmas. He didn't even know, because he's so innocent, so naive. He can't actually wrap his mind around it.
Well, and he is the scariest thing in Halloweentown. It's even explained. Without trying. And he's actually fairly good-natured and naive. And it's one of the reasons I get so twisted when people start talking about evil spirits. There are no evil spirits. But here's the thing. If you've never been human, and I don't know, your whole deal is scaring people, and you think it's fun, because especially around Halloween.
And they like it.
And they like it, and they think you do too. Because that's a whole thing in in Halloween, is we specifically scare each other for fun. Haunted houses, haunted trails, haunted corn mazes, which I found out apparently there's one one town over, and I'm thinking about us stopping by that on around the Halloween. And maybe next year I can even, if we're still in this same area, even maybe volunteer or work. Just because I've always wanted to be that scary house, and I haven't been able to do it, and I think my closest thing I'll be able to do for at least 10 years will be like a haunted maze or something.
Right. So, yeah, if you didn't do it this year, next year, try to participate in something like that. Most towns have them, and if they don't, if you live in a small town, there's nothing like that, well, I'm sorry for you, but try to set something up. Go around and talk to people beforehand. And let them know how important the season is. If for nothing else than the community aspect. I mean, if you're talking to Christians and you try bringing up the religious or spiritual aspect of it, they're just going to ignore you. That's all there is to it. But you bring in the community aspect of it, the tradition of it. Hey, it's a tradition. It's good. It's good for the kids. It gets everybody out, brings everybody together. Then they might be interested in participating and getting something going. Because like my town, when I was a kid, it almost died out, and then there was just a bunch of families with shoestring frickin' what's that called? Where you got budget, shoestring budget, and they strung something together. Somebody had a little bit of land and a barn. Other people had sheets and time and rope and cardboard, and they made something. And then it just got bigger and bigger and bigger until it got big enough where the town stepped in. They're like, if you guys are going to be doing this, you need to get a license for it because we got to be able to make money. Yeah, man, the freaking licenses. This is one thing I don't like about doing the YouTube shows is I have to edit myself so hard, and it's not just the swears. It's everything. Everything about me is built for an uncensored show.
And to go, because we swung from the very beginning kind of to the very end, but since we're there, when Jack is shot out of the sky, he lands in a cemetery, and Zero, which is his ghost dog, which I can't remember, I think his nose is actually a jack-o'-lantern. Like, it's not just a red dot, it's actually a jack-o'-lantern. But he goes and he fetches his jawbone, which had fallen off, and puts it back. None of the bones are injured. He's totally fine. It's just the jawbone got loose. And the dog went and got it. And then he, does this whole thing about how I'm sad that I didn't do it as well. And then he's like, I'm the frickin' Pumpkin King, and I'm going to show people what I'm made of. And I'm awesome on Halloween. And then he goes back to Halloweentown through the grave, actually. He goes through a mausoleum.
Well, yeah. I was just going to say that it's even showed at one point he doesn't actually need Zero to fetch his bones for him. He can just call his bones to himself, kind of like in some of the stop animation movies with the Greek. I forget the name of it. It's got the monsters and the skeleton army, and then they knock them apart, and skeletons go flying, and skeletons pull themselves. Yeah, I think that's it, Jason and the Argonauts. Something like that. So Jack doesn't need his bones fetched for him. But another indication, too, it's not just his power level. It's how much the spirits of Halloweentown love Jack is when he goes missing for a few hours, not days, hours, they go looking for him because they're worried about him. They go tromping through the pumpkin patches looking for him. They go through all the graves, through all the sarcophagi, I think is another one that they mention. The people below him, and he does. That's the other thing too. Jack doesn't treat them like they're lesser than him. So, but the people of Halloweentown actually love Jack. They look up to him. They respect him. They want to be like him. The only reason why he's even interested in Christmas is because he is so good at Halloween. He is Halloween. I think it's in the song. It might be spoken, not lyrics, but spoken words. Dialogue, that's the word. It might be spoken dialogue, but he mentions how he doesn't even have to try. Yes, thank you. The same as last year and the year before. I don't even have to try. So he just wants to do something he has to actually try at. He fails horribly. He realizes how good he is at Halloween, and he's back to being the Pumpkin King. That's kind of the rundown of the whole movie. But even Sally has a character arc because she starts off all shy and she's trying to run away, but she's non-confrontational about it. And then towards the end, the ragdoll finds a spine.
Yes, and I actually found out looking a little bit into it, what she's stuffed with is actually dead leaves. Mm-hmm. So she's actually stuffed with autumn leaves, basically. So she's kind of a doll of autumn. But this is why I love the film, is you just keep seeing bits when you actually know the pagan lore, like Oogie's boys, the 3 trick-or-treaters. That's how trick-or-treating works. Is there some of the trick-or-treaters, and I've brought this up on the last 2 shows, are spirits disguised. Because who is behind the zombie mask? Is it 12-year-old Freddy from down the block? Or is it a 2,000-year-old ghoul that just really likes Snickers bars?
Right, yeah, because those kids, when they take off the masks, the one that's the witch, she takes off the mask. The mask is actually form-fitted to her face. That is her. Same way with the devil one, same way with the little skeleton one. He's an undead thing with the skeletal grin. So, yeah, that's actually kind of how these things work. Somebody dresses up as a goblin. Are they dressed up as a goblin, or is it a goblin dressed up like a goblin? Nobody knows.
Well, and one of my personal favorites, and they've brought this up on 2 different TV shows, which is The Simpsons, and I saw it on some Disney show, whatever. But the monsters will actually dress up as other monsters. Like in The Simpsons, they had like Dracula dress as Iron Man, and I think the Wolfman as Harry Potter. Because everyone knows these monsters, but we gotta be cool. So they start dressing up as like the well-known figures.
Right. The Wolfman dresses up as, I don't know, Disco Dan, because nobody's scared of the werewolf anymore, but Disco Dan kind of weirds everybody out. It's kind of along those lines. But even the werewolf, when you're watching that movie, you can see that the werewolf in The Nightmare Before Christmas, he actually does kind of play a protector role. He's a minor, like 3rd or 4th string character, so it's not really pop out front, but you can see that werewolf actually does play kind of a protector role. The vampires are, well, one, they're eager, but the other one is they're kind of wise, because they think about looking in places that other people won't look. For Jack, like I think it was the vampires look behind the Cyclops' eye. And then there's a couple of other like throwaway lines in there. I can't think of them off the top of my head because I'm not a film critic, so I don't remember all the punches. But yeah, it's kind of implied that they're the older, wiser ones. The werewolf, he's friendly and a protector type. You got Boogie's boys. Is that what they're called?
Oogie's boys.
Oogie's boys. Which one happens to be a girl. I don't know what to make of the mayor, though. That's the one where I'm like, I'm not sure. So maybe somebody in the audience knows what to make of him.
I just kind of wrote him as a creepy doll. One thing I found interesting, and this is something that you don't always catch, but the swamp monster that's clearly based off the creature from the Black Lagoon, it's female. It's you don't notice it except for that one throwaway moment really early on where pretty much every character is trying to get right next to Jack because they're so excited. They're trying to get his attention because they like him so much, and they're so impressed. But specifically, the witches are up front, and it's kind of implied that it's the females kind of groupies going after the really popular guy. Because Jack is a bachelor for most of the film. He doesn't actually start kind of being in a relationship with Sally till like the last 30 seconds of the film. But that actually ties into all the female spirits that are in the lore. I mean, you've got the nymphs, you've got the Rusalki, and all of these. And some of them, like the Rusalki, are spirits of the dead, specifically like women that drowned themselves. So there's just these little tidbits here and there.
Right. Well, and there's even lines in the songs like for the Halloweentown on a moonless night, and then on the when he's singing about Christmas, it's on a cold and moon-filled night. The moonless night comes up right around the same time as the shadow thing in the intro song, where he's the shadow on a moonless night when he comes up and he covers up the moon, filling you full of fright. I'm just poking at the lines because I don't remember that part. So yeah, and he actually mentions a moonless night in there on the Halloween end of it, which is correct because these holidays are actually floating holidays. It's not October 31st and it's not December 25th. Sometimes it is, but most time no. It's it's literally around the lunar cycles.
Well, like specifically the way that Samhain works is I think that, well, Samhain, Halloween, whatever you want to call it, is it's, like you said, it's supposed to be on a new moon. So no moon. So no moon in the sky because then the spirits can go around a bit easier. The 31st is still a point of energy. It's valid. And it does work similar with November 1st and November 2nd. That whole like trio, which the Christians call All Hallows Eve, All Saints Day, All Souls Day, that whole sort of area has become the conglomeration, but none of these holidays were fixed until the church fixed them.
And even then, some of them weren't fixed until industrialization, because then people needed to pick a day to take off for these holidays, which quite often they just didn't go. So what's the what's the company going to do if just nobody shows up? So it's not all the church, and it's not all industrialization. But when you put the two things together, then you get what we have now.
Precisely. And and now they're just going the full route of just taking the holidays away. Like Halloween. If it doesn't land on a weekend, you're pretty much out of luck unless you take the day off.
Well, that's like here. Trick-or-treating, it hasn't been banned, but they don't want it, so they're doing everything that they can to get people to not do it. And wonderful news, people's doing it anyways. So that's cool. Maybe not everywhere here, but did talk to that lady today, and she was talking about how they was going to go trick-or-treating, and there's at least an area around here where they are going to be doing that, which tells me that there's going to be more areas that's actually doing it. I'm hoping people show up here so I can hand out some candy to some little goblins and ghosts and creepy things. It's a thing. And I'm just glad somebody's doing it. So that's a big positive for me. But yeah, and you brought up the liminal spaces with Jack in the movie earlier. When Jack himself, he can kind of go between the realms as he sees fit. It's implied that the people of Halloweentown can only come to our realm and while accompanying Jack. It's implied. It's not outright said, but it is implied that they have to travel with him. Jack himself, though, whenever the hell he wants, he just kind of does. And that's indicated when he just goes into the mausoleum, because he doesn't have to use there's even a fairy ring in the movie. He doesn't have to use the Halloween door, which he didn't even know existed, because he doesn't have to use it until he went on his grand adventure to Christmastown.
Yes, and that fairy ring was specifically you could go to any of those towns. Whether that was Thanksgiving, it was American holidays, of course. But that was one of my favorite details, and it's in this woods that for some reason he hadn't really been to. I'm guessing he just kind of sticks in Halloweentown or goes to our realm to scare.
Doesn't have to use it.
Yeah, the main bosses don't have to use it. I mean, Santa Claus later in the movie, he just pretty much just flies out. And here's the thing is, anyone who thinks Santa Claus is weaker in that film than Jack, no. I mean, at worst, they're equal. But you could even make a case that Santa Claus is actually stronger, specifically because he directly impacts Jack's realm. At the very end, he actually makes it snow, which Jack didn't change the weather. He didn't do anything. I mean, Jack's whole thing he also didn't try, which is fair. So that's why I argue he could be equal. But what's he really going to do? Make it blow wind and chilly and creepy? What is he? I mean, because there's snow doesn't really hurt Halloween. It's not associated with it, but it can happen. Like Hala, who can make it snow. She's also associated with Halloween. But with Jack and Santa Claus specifically, it's pretty much shown, given how fast and how powerful Santa Claus is, or Sandy Claus, he literally could leave whenever he wanted. He was under no, there was no way Oogie Boogie could really keep him there. He was probably there essentially to see what would happen.
Out of curiosity. Yeah, honestly, I think based off from the things that they showed that he is capable of, I think he was there mostly out of curiosity. Who is it that has the audacity to kidnap me? What is the easiest way to find out? Just go along with it. Because whoever's kidnapping you, it's probably the correct word to insert there would be who's having you kidnapped, not who is actively doing the kidnapping. Because, because it makes sense in this context. So what's the easiest way to find out? Okay, I found out this is who's kidnapping me. He might have thought it was Boogeyman at first. And then, well, why? Why is he kidnapping me? What's the easiest way to find out? To just hang out and let him talk. Because when it came time, yeah, he just flew out. I mean, really, who can catch Santa Claus?
Well, that's like there's this huge tense moment where Santa Claus is about to get put into, I don't know, Oogie's goop that he cooks his dinner in. He can fly. He's not going to fall into that. He was pretty much letting that go as long as he possibly could to see what would happen. And probably the reason he didn't start a fight with Jack was two reasons. One, probably Jack was about equal power level, so it's really not worth it to try and pick a fight with him. Second of all, Sally showed that at least one of the creatures there had enough sense to understand that something bad was going on.
Well, yeah, and there's that line they said about "you're all insane," and that was the point where he was done. One person is sane there, or how was he worded it? One person's normal or almost normal.
She's the only one with any sense around here, is what they said.
Any sense around here, and everyone else is crazy. So at that point, he was done and he just left. Was he kidnapped? Yeah, I guess. But there was no way that they was keeping him against his will. However, again, to show Jack's power scale, because Santa Claus, I would argue, isn't more powerful than Jack. They're just different. They are fundamentally, at the core, just different. That's all. Jack, one, got into Christmas Town. The other, he's going all over Christmas Town in plain sight, and nobody's seeing him. Why? Because he doesn't want to be seen. But yet he's singing and dancing everywhere. Even in when he goes into that room where all the little elvesies are sleeping peacefully in their bed, and he's creeping and crawling and singing, he grabs one by the head, gets his face right down there. He's singing in its face. And then it doesn't wake up until he literally drops the elf and yells. And then the elf sits up, wide awake, and goes back to sleep immediately. That's a power scale. Whether you think or whether you realize it or not, once you think about it, oh yeah, that's exceptionally powerful, because he's not even in his own, he's not in a realm that he has any business being in, and he can still have this kind of effect.
He has maxed out his points in stealth.
Yes.
But and to get back into, I think, kind of more of the middle of the film, because you've actually brought up, like, in your family stories, the boogeyman is not a bad character. Mm-hmm. He's actually a protector of kids. Mm-hmm. Who he's scary to are the adults who could threaten the kids. Which it's interesting that the three henchmen of Oogie Boogie are relatively loyal children. Yeah,
because the boogeyman, I'm not going to get into the actual family stories, but I'll just call him the boogeyman. Yes, he scares old children until they realize what he is. And I don't care how you view this, But the way that we teach the children, because they're scared of the monster in the closet, the monster in the shadow, the monster under the bed. Shoot, the monster under the blankets at the foot of the bed. That's the most terrifying one because it's in the bed with you. But the way that we describe it is it's a protective spirit that's watching you, and what you're scared of is you can feel its power. But the reason that you never see it is because it's not there to hurt you. It's just watching. And you're scared because you can feel the power roll off from this guardian who is watching over you, and should things get too bad, things are going to get too bad for the adult or for the real monster that's in the room or that's trying to sneak into the room. But basically, yeah, the boogeyman is a protector. We use a different name for him, but we equate it to the boogeyman or the monster under the bed, because really that's what it is. How many times have you been attacked by the monster in the closet? How many times have you been attacked by the monster under the bed? It never attacks you. It's just there and it's scary. Well, why is it scary? Well, because it's really powerful and you can tell. As a child, you can just feel it. But once you understand that, it's just there to watch over you, keep bad dreams away, whatever. Well, now it stops being so scary.
Well, and there's some very bit characters in the hanged skeletons from the Living Tree. And that's actually because there's actually two references, oddly enough, to the god of the gallows, or like hanging gods or whatever. There's the hung men, which the skeletons are effectively their spirits.
The gallows tree.
That's the gallows tree. And then on top of that, you also have the cage that Oogie's boys ride up into their treehouse in.
The gibbet?
Yeah, it's the gibbet. It used to be what you'd put prisoners in, and the birds would peck their eyes and flesh out.
So yeah, there's deities in there. There's spirits in there. There's accurate descriptions of the holidays and their intentions. Not necessarily the draining of blood. For the award for the most blood drained tonight goes to the vampires. No. But it's all in fun. So, again, not everything is accurate. Don't take it all 100%. But it should be motivation to actually learn some of the lore. And there is a lot more packed into this 90-minute movie. I think it's 90 minutes. Screw it. We're going to call it 90 minutes. There is a lot packed into this 90 minutes, and a lot more than what you'd think that there is at a passing glance.
Yeah, it's all over. It is throughout the entire film. There are brief references to this. One thing I found very interesting is that Jack, he's a scientist. He's a genius, specifically of like mad science, I guess people would call it. But another interesting thing is that every year he tries to do something new, which actually shows the evolving nature of holiday traditions. Because how he would have celebrated Halloween or whatever it was called, 1,000 years ago would not be the same way that he does the holiday now, because he wants to do something new every year. And that actually references, to a certain extent, the changing nature of traditions, because jack-o'-lanterns used to be carved out of turnips, and then we got pumpkins, and pumpkins work better.
Yeah, the pumpkins are just plain out easier to deal with. And there was something else I was just going to bring up. I believe it's in the intro song, but I can't remember what it is now. And it's another accuracy in it. The screams of fright and the something about fun, but the holiday, yes, scary is part of it, but it's also supposed to be fun, and not just for the monsters and the spooky things. It's supposed to be fun for us too. And these monsters of Halloweentown understand we have fun with the holiday. So they do the things that they do so that we can have fun together. Because really think about it. At least when we as kids, and even now as grown-ups, I've seen grown-ups go through like the haunted trail at the woods at insert location. And you got the guys going through trying their darndest to not jump. I'm going to walk through the trail stoically, trying to not jump, trying to walk through at an even pace, not slow down, not speed up, don't jump, and for the love of all the ancestors and gods, don't shriek, especially like a girl. So, yeah, as adults, even, we have fun doing it if we allow ourselves to do it. If we allow ourselves to have fun, even as adults, we can have a lot of fun. It's not all sexy kitty, the sexy Indian, the sexy nurse, the sexy whatever. No, that's not at all what it is. It's supposed to actually just be fun. Go out, have fun. Potentially, I mean, just what if? Play the what if game. What if some of these kids dressed up as ghosts or goblins or Power Rangers or Iron Men or Hulks? What if it's a spirit dressed up as the Hulk? What if it's a spirit dressed up as Iron Man? What if it's a spirit that's walking with the kids because the mom got lost and she's running around looking for her kids, and this is a spirit walking with the kids? What if? It's a wonderful game to play, especially on a holiday like Halloween. It's a great game to play, and it should be played. It's supposed to be played. Why so serious? I mean, really, it's a good question. Why so serious?
Well, and that actually brings in another thing, which is the film. While it references all this ancient lore, it is also very happy to use more recent things. Like I brought up the Creature of the Black Lagoon. There's the Frankenstein movie references, even though the guy's more of he's more of like a magic doll creator than a mad scientist, really.
The Hills Have Eyes is mentioned.
Oh, the Hills Have Eyes. They have like some weird revenant zombies with like the axe in their head. Most of the fauna of the area are either literal monsters or pests, so like rats and basically the creatures associated with eating the dead.
Creatures of the night.
Yes, creatures of the night. And this also brings in that it's okay to do some modern things. Like, there's nothing really wrong with using a more modernized version of a scarecrow costume or a plague doctor costume or, I don't know, Creature of the Black Lagoon or any of that. And really, well, I tend to discourage things like Lady Gaga and Jack Sparrow. Actually, Jack Sparrow's a gray area. But in general, just wearing a costume is a win at this point because a lot of people won't even do that. Mm-hmm. But Jack is, Jack Sparrow, oddly enough, first of all, the name Jack, because it literally means spirit. But I think they admitted when they were designing the character to a certain extent, they actually looked at like trickster gods. And people have actually pointed out, like, to cross over into another movie, and then hopefully we can make it back. Jack Sparrow, in that first opening scene of Pirates of the Caribbean, he takes a bucket and just starts bailing out the water, and apparently takes out just enough so that he will perfectly arrive on top of standing on the mast of a drowning ship, of a sinking ship. That is impressive. That is trickster god level intellect.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. There's so many things that implies that Jack Sparrow is more than a mere mortal. Through all the movies, actually. Through all the movies, there's things to imply that he is more than a mere mortal, but that he likes people. So, therefore, he tries to live as one, but he's not one. Because, I mean, think about all the little things that Jack does. It's the little things that kind of gives the game up. And I don't know if the writers intended it or not. I mean, yes, they did actually look at some trickster deities because they want them to kind of have that feel. But I think they, whether purposefully or inadvertently, ended up making him a trickster deity of the sea. Because that's where his powers are the strongest, is actually when he's on the sea.
Well, and when he's best at tricking people because he can get away. But with Jack Sparrow, I think one of my favorite things, and I actually cut it from the third movie, I think it was, but Jack Sparrow specifically, he actually thanks Norrington, who is a rather bland character in the final cut, but he's actually a lot more interesting in other aspects of the Pirates of the Caribbean stories. And thanks him for, because of Norrington's actions, he had no choice but to be who he was, and he thanked Norrington for it. Because Norrington is who created Jack, effectively. And actually, it's not really told in the movies, but there's like expanded universe lore, and in a deleted scene, it's referenced specifically. The reason Jack became a pirate is he freed slaves. He is specific. He does not view...
That is the cargo.
Yes, he does not view living people, or living things really, as cargo. Because I've never even seen him use another animal as cargo. He doesn't tend to view living things like that. And I think this is a completely different movie from the one we were talking about, but it actually shows how much of our lore carries over even into modern storytelling. Because our storytelling tradition, it doesn't come out of thin air. There are thousands upon thousands upon thousands upon thousands of years of traditions that are called on. And even when we try to tell other races' stories, like there's a good film on this, Brother Bear. Mm-hmm. Brother Bear. They are trying to tell the story of, I think, like an Inuit or like a Pacific Northwestern Indian tribe. They fail. They are referencing more European lore on accident.
Yeah. And why does it keep coming out? Because the people that will actually pay to go watch the movies en masse like it. It's like another movie, Brave, I think it is. The one with the Irish or the Scottish girl on the bow, and you got, I think they're Scots, and you got the bears and whatnot. But back to now for our nice clean segue back, much like walking across broken glass. Yeah, the deities they show up in all kinds of movies, and they're in The Nightmare Before Christmas. And it's more than just Jack and Santa Claus. It's the elves. It's, well, no, I was going to say the polar bear, but the polar bear in that movie is actually a wind-up toy.
The Easter Bunny.
Oh, yeah, the Easter Bunny. Let me see. Oh, well, the werewolves, you got... references to the gallows, the god of the gallows. They're all through there. I mean, I'm kind of punchy right now. I'm a little loopy in the head. Good thing that we're just about done with this episode, because it's pretty late here right now.
Well, and it's actually this is especially notable in Greek and Roman lore, but like lesser known deities, well, like lesser known spirits. So spirits that are not technically deities, but are in that similar class. They've actually had stories where they will rise to deityhood, like godhood, by marrying a god. And this even happens with people like Psyche and Cupid. Or I forget who it is, but there's Flora, and she marries a goddess, and she goes from nymph to goddess. I would argue that nymphs are just local goddesses, but that's besides the point. Sally effectively goes from minor spirit to the queen of Halloweentown. And it's even though she's not officially the...
Talk about marrying up.
Yeah, because she was basically a servant before that. She was a very minor spirit, for better or worse. And here's the best part. She's technically a spinning spirit. Because what is she really good at? Sewing. And here's the thing is she's the only spirit in that whole town with forethought.
Well, they even have a creator spirit within the Halloweentown. And I'm sure with a little bit of digging we could probably find something like this. But either way, I find it an interesting concept, because you got the mad scientist, which created Sally. You're mine. You're mine. And she keeps poisoning him, saying, no, not me. I'm Jax. because she's just infatuated with him. I wonder why. He's the most powerful guy there. No, it couldn't be because of that. It's because of his personality. That's it. Yes.
Well, and she wins because not only is she bold enough to more or less admit she likes him, but she shows it, because all the other females in Halloweentown, they're basically just slobbering after him like, oh my gosh, he's so great, you're so great. What does she do? She helps him. She warns him. She tries to specifically help him out of bad situations with the fog juice to stop the whole thing without getting in his face. The fog juice to keep him from basically destroying another deity's holiday. Specifically going to save the other holiday. So that deity, because she knows she can't help Jack, but Sandy Claus can. And, she actually delivers like food at one point as a gift. This is actually how a lot of times the females would court, is they would show what they can do. She was showing off her sewing. She was showing off her cooking. She was showing off how bold and brave she was. And by the end, it impressed him. Like he even says, right when they're quote unquote saved from Oogie's lair, I never realized how basically great you are.
Right. And, yeah, so we're getting to the end. I'm going to wrap up here because I'm running out of gas, but these things are important, so we need to talk about them. But I want to remind everybody, in case you skip past the beginning, shame on you. But make sure to tune in on the 30th and the 31st, because we're going to be doing a couple live streams with Neil Rundgren. That's Aethelwolf. He's our resident artist, and he does commissions and helps us out with our books and everything. It's his birthday on the 30th, so show up at least on the 30th to say happy birthday to Neil. That's going to be roughly 4 p.m. Eastern time, Eastern U.S. And make sure to check out our Telegram. We should have book coming out in the next couple days. If you follow our Telegram, you'll see when we post that. Hopefully everything goes smooth and we can get it out before Halloween, but it's more about the thinning of the veil. It's more about the time of the year. So even if we miss the target by a day or two, it's still plenty valid. It is not just Halloween. It is got a Halloween vibe to it, but is actually about this time of the year, the thinning of the veil, the ancestors, trials. There's all kinds of good stuff in there. So yeah, until next Saturday, I think that's the 30th, I believe. So until then, man, don't keep your head down. Don't keep your mouth shut. Do keep your powder dry, because the shit's about to get real.
And I will say, be sure to take a second look at a lot of modern stories. I know there's a lot of garbage, especially in the last few years, but there's also a lot of gold in the last 100 years from the modern stories. And even recently, like we brought up Jack and Sandy Claus and the entirety of A Nightmare Before Christmas, but we also name-dropped Artio that shows up in Brave, or Jack Sparrow and Davy Jones and all these figures that are either deities or based off of deities from our lore. Our story never stopped being told. We just stopped noticing it because you don't notice the things right in front of your eyes. You don't realize that they just called what is supposedly a saint a jolly old elf until you're already singing Christmas carols drunk on wassail. You don't realize that there's a ghost that showed up to your door because he was dressed as Iron Man. These traditions haven't stopped. They're beautiful, and we have continued them, and we cannot allow them to fall away. We have to embrace them, love them, and nurture them for the next generation so they also have stories to tell. And with that, the Lore Keeper's out.